So Ryan Reynolds obviously has to be deported back to Canada. Once again, this is a way for the left and the right to come together because no matter where you stand on the topic of mass deportations of illegals, we can now all agree that the moral crimes committed here by Ryan Reynolds against Justin Baldoni have amounted to high treason.
What's good, everyone? Today we're diving into some seriously wild tea about Robert Downey Jr. and why he turned down Ryan Reynolds. And trust me, this story is about to expose way more than anyone expected about what's really going on in Hollywood. Listen. When RDJ turns down a role, especially one in what's supposed to be the biggest superhero movie of the year, you know something's up. But what if I told you this wasn't just about a cameo? What if this whole situation connects directly to the Justin Baldoni drama that's been blowing up? Before we get into all this craziness, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this story is developing faster than anyone can keep up with. And what I'm about to share might change everything you thought you knew about Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. Think about it. Why would one of Hollywood's biggest stars pass up what could have been an epic moment in Deadpool 3? Well, the answer is about to blow your mind.
Ask Built members, what celebrities would be the most fun to hang out with?
He's probably on the list just because he covers himself up in his movies and you don't see his face. Ryan Reynolds, is he one of those? And you want to know something? He's not so funny in real life.
All right, let's break down exactly what happened with this Deadpool 3 situation because it's way deeper than anyone's reporting. So Ryan Reynolds and his team approached RDJ about doing this cameo, right? They even wrote this whole scene specifically for him and Jon Favreau. Now, this wasn't just going to be some quick appearance. They had this whole elaborate scene plan that would have taken place before the events of Infinity War. The script was actually written back in 2018, and they'd been holding on to it, waiting for the perfect moment to approach RDJ with it. But here's where things get interesting. When Ryan finally showed RDJ the script, he got an immediate no.
Robert Downey Jr., after a 5-year break, is returning to Marvel, but before he did that, he actually turned down Ryan Reynolds. Making the movie Deadpool and Wolverine, Hugh Jackman told Ryan Reynolds in 2021 he'd return as Wolverine after saying 4 years earlier he'd never come back doing the movie Logan.
Not just a polite pass, but a hard, instant rejection. And according to inside sources, RDJ could smell something fishy about the whole situation. Think about the timing here. This approach came right when all this drama with Justin Baldoni was starting to surface. RDJ, being the veteran he is in Hollywood,
it was one of the most cameo-filled movies in history where 45 different actors from both the MCU and the Fox universe returned for Deadpool and Wolverine.
Picked up on something that most people would have missed, the pattern of how Ryan and Blake operate when they're trying to set someone up. The way they presented this opportunity was eerily similar to how they approached Justin Baldoni. First comes the friendly outreach, then the specially written scene, and finally, the trap. But RDJ's been in this game too long to fall for it. Now, let's talk about something that really adds weight to this whole situation. Martha Stewart's recent comments about Ryan Reynolds. Because when Martha Stewart, the queen of keeping it polite, decides to spill some tea, you know it's serious. During this recent interview, Martha was asked about which celebrities would be the most fun to hang out with. When Ryan's name came up, her response was absolutely shocking. She straight up said, "He's not so funny in real life." Let that sink in for a minute. This isn't some random person, this is Martha Stewart, who's known for being incredibly diplomatic. But it gets even better.
One actor Ryan Reynolds asked to return for Deadpool and Wolverine was Robert Downey Jr., saying he wanted him to share a scene with Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau does actually have a very big scene in the movie Deadpool and Wolverine, but that scene was originally written with Robert Downey Jr. taking the main stage and Jon Favreau only being a small part of it.
She actually took Ryan off her list of fun celebrities and replaced him with someone else. That's not just shade, that's a full-on eclipse. And the way she said it, with this disappointed tone like she'd seen behind the curtain, that tells us everything we need to know. What's really interesting is how this lines up with what industry insiders have been saying for years. Behind that charming public persona, there's apparently a completely different Ryan Reynolds.
Talks with begging and pleading for the Deadpool movie to get made, and then within 24 hours we had a green light. We were making it. We were
Wow.
yeah,
Is that quick?
It was that quick.
The funny guy we see in interviews and on social media, according to Martha, that's all just carefully crafted performance. And think about it, Martha has no reason to lie about this. She's not involved in any drama with Ryan. She's not competing with him for roles or business ventures. She's just someone who's seen him when the cameras aren't rolling, and she's finally decided to be honest about what she saw. Let's dive into something that's really eye-opening, the pattern of how Ryan and Blake operate in Hollywood.
It was so undeniable, and it felt really good.
But also, you must be quite pissed off that, you couldn't make that decision for yourselves.
Yes, exactly. We tried, but the fans got it made, so this is great.
Because what we're seeing with RDJ isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a bigger picture that's starting to become clear. First, let's look at how they approached Justin Baldoni. They didn't just show up one day and start causing problems. No, it was this calculated process that started with friendly interactions, moved to business opportunities, and then suddenly, boom.
that came along, and it was sort of like, play Deadpool in this movie or we'll get someone else to. And I just said, I'll do it, but it's the wrong version. It was, Deadpool wasn't correct in it, so.
Justin finds himself in this impossible situation. Now compare that to how they tried to handle RDGG. They wrote this special scene, made it seem like this amazing opportunity, but there was something off about the whole thing. RDJ picked up on it immediately because he's seen this kind of manipulation before. When you've been in Hollywood as long as he has, you develop a sixth sense for these things. What's really fascinating is how they use their public image as a shield. Everyone thinks of Ryan and Blake as this perfect Hollywood couple, right?
His mouth was sewn shut.
Yeah, he's got the Merc with the mouth, and they sewed his mouth shut. Yeah, no, not it.
They're funny on social media. They troll each other. They seem so relatable. But according to multiple sources now, that's all just carefully crafted PR. The way they insert themselves into different projects is particularly telling. They don't just get involved in movies or business ventures, they infiltrate every aspect. From production meetings to marketing strategies, they slowly take control of the narrative until they're the ones calling all the shots.
Both of them. Yes. And also kind of acknowledge this like long legacy of wish fulfillment, which is, for me personally, part of that wish fulfillment is that
And let's talk about how they handle anyone who doesn't play along with their plans. The instant someone doesn't fall in line with what they want, suddenly there's all these coincidental problems that start popping up. Now, let's talk about how Hollywood is responding to all this, because the industry's reaction tells us everything we need to know. When RDJ turns down a role, people pay attention. But when the reason starts circulating, that's when things get really interesting. Inside sources are saying that other A-list actors are now being more cautious about working with Ryan and Blake. It's not just about the Justin Baldoni situation anymore. It's about this pattern of conduct that keeps emerging.
At some point. But the signs are all there. I mean, it's all, the Deadpool 1, the first line of the movie is me talking about him. The last, most emotional part of the film at the end is me taking my mask off.
These aren't just random incidents. They're calculated moves that people are finally starting to recognize. What's really telling is how different industry professionals are coming forward with their own stories. Like Marina Baccarin from the first Deadpool movie, remember how she basically disappeared from the franchise? Well, now we're finding out that Ryan might have given her the Justin Baldoni treatment, keeping her away from press events and limiting her role. Even Tim Miller, the original Deadpool director, spoke out about why he left the franchise. He straight up said it became clear that Ryan wanted to control everything. That's not just creative differences. That's someone describing a pattern of controlling conduct that made it impossible to do their job. The way the industry is protecting itself now is fascinating, too. We're hearing about new clauses being added to contracts, specifically designed to prevent the kind of situation Justin Baldoni found himself in.
Properties that comes along that, they're reticent to make, and they didn't want to make it. It was 11 years I was trying to get them to do a Deadpool movie, but they finally did. I think that it's sort of...
When lawyers start drafting specific provisions because of your actions, you know you've crossed some serious lines. And let's talk about how talent agencies are responding. After what happened with WME and Justin Baldoni, agencies are being much more careful about how they handle situations involving Ryan and Blake. They're not just looking at the immediate deal anymore. They're considering the potential long-term consequences. Let's dive into something really fascinating: how Ryan and Blake use social media to maintain their image, because this is where things get really clever.
It all works in its favor, the anticipation of a Deadpool movie, constantly being asked. I mean, that was kind of the worst torture over the years, was people always saying, are they going to make a Deadpool movie?
And after what RDJ revealed, we're seeing their online presence in a whole new light. Think about their famous social media trolling of each other. Everyone thinks it's so cute and relatable, right? But according to industry insiders, these posts are actually carefully planned and timed. It's not spontaneous humor. It's strategic content designed to maintain their perfect couple image. What's really interesting is how they use this online presence to control narratives.
WGA writer's strike, so we were in the middle of production, there was no writers, no anything. I mean, when I show every line I have in the movie, I just wrote myself, because it's in the script that we had, it just said, Wade Wilson shows up, talks really fast.
Whenever there's negative press about them, suddenly there's a flood of these perfectly timed, seemingly casual posts that get all the attention. It's like watching master magicians redirect everyone's focus exactly where they want it. The way they handle their business ventures on social media is particularly telling. Take Aviation Gin or Betty Buzz. Every post seems casual and fun, but it's all part of this larger strategy. They're not just selling products, they're selling this whole lifestyle and personality that, according to Martha Stewart and others, doesn't match reality. And let's talk about their response to criticism.
This film, I was lucky enough I got to produce it, and I got to star in it, and I got to really sort of protect it. And I was so vigilant about the canon of Deadpool to make sure.
Have you noticed how any negative stories about them tend to get buried under an avalanche of positive press? That's not accidental. They've got this whole system in place where their PR team floods social media with carefully crafted content whenever something potentially damaging comes up. The timing of their posts is something else that's worth noting. Whenever someone like Justin Baldoni or now RDJ reveals something negative, suddenly there's this wave of candid family moments or funny couple interactions that take over everyone's feeds. Let's break down something that nobody's really talking about: the way Ryan and Blake operate in the business world. Because after what RDJ revealed, we're starting to see a pattern in how they handle their business dealings too. First off, let's look at how they approach potential business partners. It always starts the same way: super friendly, lots of personal attention, making you feel like you're part of their inner circle. But according to sources, this is just the first step in their playbook. They're not building friendships, they're creating leverage. Take what happened with Aviation Gin. Everyone focuses on the successful sale, but insiders are now talking about how Ryan gradually took more and more control of the company's direction before the sale. It's this same pattern we're seeing with movie projects, slowly increasing influence until they're calling all the shots. What's really interesting is how they use their connections. They built this network where they can make things happen or make things difficult for pretty much anyone in Hollywood. That's why RDJ's rejection is such a big deal. He's one of the few stars powerful enough to say no without worrying about consequences. The way they handle negotiations is particularly telling. According to industry sources, they often come in with these seemingly reasonable requests, but then keep adding more and more conditions once people are already committed. It's like a frog in boiling water. By the time you realize what's happening, it's too late. And let's talk about how they handle competition. When someone launches a similar product or project, suddenly there's all these coincidental obstacles that start appearing. Just ask anyone who's tried to compete with Aviation Gin or Betty Buzz in the celebrity spirits market. Let's talk about something that's becoming really clear after RDJ's revelation: the way Ryan and Blake manipulate power in Hollywood. Because this isn't just about business or movies anymore, it's about controlling who gets to succeed in the industry. Think about what happened with Deadpool 3. They didn't just want RDJ for a cameo. They wanted to use his name and reputation to boost their project. But more than that, they wanted him involved in a way that could potentially be used against him later. That's exactly what RDJ picked up on and why he said no. The way they handle casting decisions is particularly interesting. Look at what happened with TJ Miller from Deadpool. He came out and said Ryan was horrifically mean to him on set, making these passive-aggressive comments about him just being there for exposition. That's not just being difficult. That's systematic undermining of someone's confidence and position. What's really fascinating is how they use their influence with different studios and production companies. If someone doesn't play ball their way, suddenly they find their projects getting delayed or their funding falling through. It's never directly traceable back to Ryan and Blake's. The pattern is there if you look closely. And let's talk about how they handle their relationships with other celebrities. They've created this situation where people are afraid to speak out against them. Martha Stewart's comments were so shocking precisely because nobody else dares to be that honest about them anymore. The way they've positioned themselves in the industry is actually brilliant, in a manipulative kind of way. They've made themselves seem so likable and untouchable that questioning them almost feels like you're the bad guy. Let's connect all these dots because what we're seeing here isn't just about RDJ turning down a role, it's about exposing a whole system of control and manipulation in Hollywood. And the way this connects to the Justin Baldoni situation is really eye-opening. Think about the timing of all this. Right when the Justin Baldoni story is gaining traction, suddenly we're hearing about how RDJ saw through similar tactics. That's not just coincidence, it's validation of everything Justin's been saying. When someone like Robert Downey Jr., who's seen everything in Hollywood, recognizes these red flags, it tells you something seriously wrong. What's really interesting is how this is affecting Ryan and Blake's empire. Their whole brand is built on being this perfect, funny, relatable couple. But now we've got Martha Stewart, RDJ, Justin Baldoni, TJ Miller, and others all painting a very different picture. It's like watching a carefully constructed house of cards starting to wobble. The industry response to all this has been fascinating too. More and more people are starting to look back at past incidents with new eyes. Those creative differences that led to people leaving projects. Those scheduling conflicts that kept certain actors from returning. Everything's being reevaluated now. And let's talk about the impact this is having on their future projects. When someone like RDJ turns you down and the reason gets out, it makes other A-listers think twice. Nobody wants to be the next person caught in what's looking more and more like a pattern of manipulation. The way other celebrities are quietly distancing themselves tells us everything we need to know. You're seeing fewer social media interactions, fewer public appearances together, fewer collaborations. It's like watching Hollywood slowly back away from what they're starting to recognize as a toxic situation. Listen, we need to wrap this up by talking about what all this means for the future of Hollywood, because what RDJ just exposed isn't just about one cameo or one couple's tactics, it's about a whole system of manipulation that's finally being brought to light. Think about how many other stories might be out there. If someone as powerful as Robert Downey Jr. had to dodge these tactics, imagine what's happening to less established actors and creators. This isn't just about Ryan and Blake anymore. It's about exposing how power really works in Hollywood. What's really wild is how this whole situation is forcing the industry to look at itself when you've got major stars turning down roles because they're worried about being set up. When you've got Martha Stewart openly calling out fake personalities, when you've got directors and actors speaking up about controlling conduct, that's when you know real change might actually be possible. Before we wrap this up, drop a comment below with your thoughts on all this. Have you noticed the pattern in how Ryan and Blake operate? Do you think more celebrities will start speaking up now that RDJ has broken the ice? And most importantly, do you think Hollywood will actually change because of these revelations? If you're finding these deep dives valuable, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're going to keep exposing these stories because the truth needs to come out, no matter how uncomfortable it makes certain celebrities. Remember, just because someone's funny on social media doesn't mean they're not capable of some seriously questionable conduct behind the scenes. Sometimes the biggest smiles hide the darkest truths. Stay informed, stay critical, and I'll catch you in the next video.